This podcast has been brought to you by Seeker's Guidance, the Global Islamic Seminary. Help us spread the light of prophetic guidance to millions around the world by becoming a monthly supporter. Make a small donation at seekersguidance.org/donate. For as little as $10 a month, you can help people find life-changing guidance.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Ya Rabbana lakal hamdu kama yanbaghi li jalali wajhika wa li azim sultanik. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana. Innaka antal alimul hakim. Glory be to Allah the Most High. We have no knowledge except that which Allah has bestowed upon us. We thank Allah, we praise Him, we ask for His assistance, His guidance, His forgiveness. We ask Allah Ta'ala to bless and send His loftiest salat and salam upon, peace and blessings upon our Master and our beloved Prophet Muhammad, the mercy to all of mankind, and upon his family, his companions, and all those who follow him until the day of judgment. May Allah forgive us and include us amongst them. Ameen. Welcome back, brothers and sisters, to another episode here on this podcast of the Provisions for the Seekers, Zad al-Talibeen, of Sheikh Ashiq Ilahi Madani Rahimahullah Ta'ala. So Bismillah, we're now on Hadith number 7, and as you recall, this is to facilitate your memorization as well as to cover and to explain these short hadiths of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We are now on Hadith number 7, and it reads, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Al-Khamru Jima'ul Itham. Jima'ul Ithmi. Al-Khamru Jima'ul Ithmi. Al-Khamru Jima'ul Ithmi. There's only 3 words here. Now, Al-Khamr is intoxicants, alcohol. And the translation of this is that alcohol comprises or constitutes many sins, right? Alcohol constitutes many sins. There's a narration in a hadith in Sunan of Imam al-Bayhaqi, one of the great scholars of hadith, from Sayyidina Ibn Umar, that the Prophet ﷺ stated, alcohol is the mother of all obscenities and the gravest of sins. Whoever consumes alcohol abandons prayer and commits adultery with his mother and with his paternal and maternal aunts. A'udhu billah. And there is a saying that a person was once called, this is a saying. So first of all, actually before we go into that, I want to reflect here for a second. When a person drinks alcohol, when a person takes intoxicants, their brain no longer functions the way a normal person who is sober functions. Their rationale is given up. They don't have balance. They're unable to control themselves. A person who is you can say, wasted and drunk, has no ability. Every single year, just in the United States, for example, now this is just in the United States, an estimated roughly 95,000 people die from alcohol-related causes. And just one of the things we think about when people drink alcohol, apart that it is haram and it is very wrong, but you can see the basic social harm that it has upon society. In the year 2014, one statistic said alcohol impaired driving fatalities accounted for close to 10,000 deaths, 31% of overall driving fatalities. So you can say 31%, which is massive, right? And that is not even to say the misuse of alcohol. In 2010, it cost the U.S. $249 billion. So what does this mean? This means that there is a great harm upon society. Now that's just related to death, related to the harmful effects of the health. As for the spiritual reasons, there is, how many people get drunk and end up doing things they really regret, teenage pregnancies, things that relate to the health of a child. For example, when someone drinks and they're pregnant, if she is pregnant in the first 3 months, can cause, according to some studies, abnormal facial features. That blood, a woman who drinks alcohol while pregnant, may harm her developing baby. It can pass into the mother's blood, into the baby's blood. It can cause so many different damages to a child while the woman is pregnant. So, and as teenagers, one of the things that happens in a lot of parties is alcohol is always there. No one ever goes to a party without alcohol. Alcohol, it brings down the guards of the individual from acting responsible, logical, rational, and it just turns them into not even animalistic, but subpar, below animal levels of behavior. For that reason, there is a story, this is just narrated, Imam Mullah al-Qari narrates this, that there was a saying that a person was once called to prostrate before an idol, but he refused. He was then asked to commit murder, he refused. He was then invited to commit adultery, but refused. However, when he was offered alcohol, he accepted, and then he committed all of the other sins. You see what happened here is the person wasn't willing to do that, but the minute that they got drunk, they basically lost all their ability to think rationally, to think, wisely, and to think about the future consequence. As a result, they committed all of them. Alcohol is a major problem. Drugs and alcohol in general, especially amongst teens. Hopefully not as much with Muslim teens, but it certainly is prevalent. One of the best things one could do is first learn about their harm, realize this is extremely detrimental. It's not a fun thing you do on the weekend. It's something that ends up being a car crash. You could die. You could go to the hospital. You could kill someone else drinking and driving. You could end up, God forbid, die in a state that you're drunk. You'll be resurrected on the day of judgment as drunk. The state that a person will die will be the state, walayadu billah, of how they will be resurrected on the day of judgment. So one should look at it as a very grave sin, and one should stay away from it. Naam. So the next hadith, hadith number 8, this hadith reads, Al-mu'minu ghirrun karimun. Al-mu'minu ghirrun karimun. Wal-fajiru khabbun la'imun. Al-mu'minu ghirrun karimun. Wal-fajiru khabbun la'imun. One more time. Al-mu'minu ghirrun karimun. Wal-fajiru khabbun la'imun. Related by Imam Abu Dawood and Tirmidhi. Now this hadith describes two types of people. The mu'min and the fajr. Good to know these words. The mu'min is the believer, right? The believer. The believer is described by two qualities. He's ghir and kareem. And we're going to explain these. The fajr, which is a transgressor, a corrupt person, is khabbun la'imun. Two words. Now the translation of this, the simple translation of this hadith is, a believer is simple and noble, and a transgressor is deceitful and ignoble. Okay? Now, important to know that the believer is, so the believer in this case is that he shuns off the affairs of this world, right? He he is a person who is described in one hadith, or the explanation of this hadith, as a person who, now the believer is described as ghir, and the ghir, he is the person who he changes his state with everyone. He has a good opinion of people. He has a sound heart. The believer has a good opinion of people. When he comes around them, he's almost in a way like innocent and naive. He thinks best of all people. He has salamat sadr. He has a peace in his heart. He doesn't have animosity. He doesn't think ill of people. So he deals with them in a good way. And unfortunately, in the state, he tends to, at times, be a bit naive about their evil. Okay? So he doesn't see it. That's just the nature of a believer. He's also described as being kareem, right? Kareem. And here, the translation is noble, right? But we can say that he is, he has noble character, okay? He has noble character. He strives to be good, and he leaves off evil because of his nobility. It's not because of his ignorance of it, it's because he leaves it out of his nobility. But as for the one who is rajul fajr, a person who is corrupt and evil, they are a bit deceitful. They hide things. They are corrupt by nature. And he is khabbun. He deludes people. He deceives them. He is somebody who is corrupt, causes corruption and hides it, deceives the people. And he is also la'imun, right? He is very low in his character, right? He's very evil in his nature. And all he strives for is corruption, okay? So this is a terrible trait to have, a'udhu billah, right? That the evil person is somebody who's acquainted with the methods of deception, right? A'udhu billah. He never allows himself to be deceived, but he continuously deceives others. So he's witty, he knows that. People can't deceive him, unlike the noble, good-hearted believer who is deceived because of his good nature and doesn't see the evil in others. He's not generous in his nature, and this is why he's just termed as being ignoble, and his nature contrary to that of a true believer. So what we can take from this hadith, brothers and sisters, is that we should be believers who shun the affairs of this world. And we should occupy ourselves with making provisions for the next world. This is the nature of the believer. And these are just two of the many attributes or traits of good people and bad people. Believers, al-mu'min wal-fajr, right? And this dichotomy you'll see a lot of times in the Quran and in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, because it clarifies for us actions and traits of which we should avoid, and actions and traits of which we should strive for. This is why that is there. So we'll do a quick review of these after we're done, inshallah. The next hadith, hadith number 9, الظلم ظلمات يوم القيامة. الظلم ظلمات يوم القيامة. الظلم ظلمات يوم القيامة. Dhulm, which is translated here as oppression. Oppression will be darknesses on the day of judgment. All right? So oppression will be darknesses on the day of judgment. This hadith is related by Imam al-Bukhari. And in this hadith, we are warned about from a term called dhulm. Now, dhulm, scholars interpret as putting a thing in a place not its own. وَضْعُ شَيْءٍ لِغَيْرِ مَحَلِّهِ. Putting something where it doesn't belong. This is the technical definition of oppression. Okay? And oppression, right? There's a lots of kinds of dhulm that we can speak about and we can expand on. However, the most important thing to think about is the dhulm that is done upon the self. لا تشرك بالله إن الشرك لظلم عظيم. Don't associate partners unto Allah, for associating partners with Allah is a grave oppression. So the first thing you can do is you can oppress yourself. Oppressing yourself, committing dhulm to yourself, could be in shirk and kufr to Allah, associating partners with Allah, taking as deities other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a'udhu billah, and other things like that. It is followed by major sins, right? We just talked about drinking alcohol. That will be a dhulm to the self. You're doing something with something that doesn't belong to you. You're putting something that doesn't belong where it's going. You're putting alcohol down your throat when it should be down the street in the gutters, right? Or using it for medicinal purposes and stuff like that, but certainly not to drink. So major sins of all types is considered dhulm on the self. So, committing adultery, lying, cheating, stealing, harming others, all of this is major sins. And then followed by minor sins. Even minor sins are a type of dhulm. But it can also relate not just to yourself, but it can relate to other people, right? For example, taking somebody, God forbid, a'udhu billah, killing somebody and taking their life, stealing someone's car, their property, their money, right? And it can also be taking, and especially with harming others, this is one of the most dangerous things we're warned about. And now we live in a world that is filled with oppressors that are oppressing their people, right? We have situations in Syria, for example, many other countries where the Muslims are being oppressed tremendously. And in China, for example, many places where Muslims are going through a lot. They're suffering, they're being persecuted for their beliefs, their positions of which they hold, simply for being Muslims, just like there was a lot of oppression and still is a lot of oppression in the West, right? Concerning minorities, concerning people that only because the color of their skin, their level of how much money they have and what positions they hold in society, people mistreat them. People commit oppression against them, right? And what our beautiful religion teaches us is that dhulm, oppression, is just darknesses you're going to bring upon yourself on the day of judgment, right? You're going to have darknesses. You're going to be in places you're going to be very scared. There's going to be punishment because you wronged others. This is also a very good translation. You wronged others. Just like dhulm or oppression can be translated as darknesses, similarly, on the other hand, just by that comparison, righteous deeds have been associated with a source of light on the day of judgment. Many places in the Quran, in fact, the dua of the Prophet ﷺ when you go to the masjid, Allahumma ja'alni fi wajhi nura wa fi qalbi nura. Oh Allah, grant me light in my face, light in my heart, light in my body, light in my veins, light in my whole body, basically, blood, vessels, vein, everything. And make me light. And light will emanate from the faces of those who performed wudu. On the day of judgment, that's how the Prophet ﷺ can tell who's from his ummah, because of the light that emanates from their face from performing wudu, which is a good action, which is an action that causes light. So may Allah Ta'ala make us of people of light. The take-home message is, please don't wrong others. Don't take their property. Don't take don't hurt their reputation. Don't wrong others. Just be good, respectful of others, and also rescue yourself from major and minor sins. Don't harm yourself. Yourself is aware, right? And yourself wants to worship Allah, so help it. Okay? The next hadith, and this will be the last one we'll cover for today, is hadith number 10. الدنيا سجن المؤمن وجنة الكافر. الدنيا سجن المؤمن وجنة الكافر. الدنيا سجن المؤمن وجنة الكافر. The dunya, the world, is a prison for the believer and a paradise for the unbeliever, the one who rejected Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his religion. So the world, the dunya, which is this world, is sijin, is a prison for the believer, sijnul mu'min. And it is the Jannah of the kafir, the paradise for the unbeliever, related both by Imam Muslim and Tirmidhi. So this world, in comparison, right? So we can look at this as the following. So it's actually what it is that this world, how is it a prison for the believer? It's a prison because when you think about and compare it to the hereafter, about the rewards of paradise, about the everlasting life where you will never get sick, you will never get old, you will never get sad, you will never get depressed, no one will ever wake you up early to go to school, no one will ever wake you up early to go to work, no one will have expectations from you, you will never be sad or lonely or depressed or wanting to do things you cannot do. You will have anything and everything you desire perpetually, forever and ever and ever, and never ever come to an end. When you think of it in ratio to that, in comparison to that, then this world can only be like a prison for you. It is like a bird that is in a cage. Now, one could say, oh, well, the bird is not dead, it's alive, it's in a little cage. But when you think about outside of that cage in the real world, there's gardens and rivers and meadows and flowers and trees and leaves and other kinds of birds it can hang out with and try the different kinds of seeds of this earth, all the provision, then you can say, oh, the little poor bird is in a prison because compared to what is waiting for it. At the same time, so this world is holding us now from all those pleasures and desires, right? That is good to have because it's for good things. However, this world for a disbeliever, an unbeliever, one who is not a believer, is a paradise when we compare it to the chastisement, or we can say the punishment awaiting for them in the hereafter, which starts from the grave on to the day of judgment and in the eternal abode, which is either Jannah or fire, in this case being fire. When you think of those who reject Allah, reject the religion, die as disbelievers, etc., then what is waiting for them of all those terrible things that could happen, then one can only assume you're in paradise right now because there's no pain, you get to sleep at night, you get to wake up, eat food, drink whatever you want, transgress and commit all the sins you want in the world because it's your paradise. You're not going to have another paradise. This is your only paradise. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He talks about in the Quran that on the next world they'll have pure wine they'll drink which doesn't get you drunk. It will be an amazing drink that is billions of times better than this world's. You'll have spouses, you'll have homes, and you'll have all the luxuries, right? But they're not for you now. You have to be patient. When those who disbelieve break those things and start drinking wine now and start doing all these other things that are forbidden, then they ruined the pleasures that if they had waited they would have received. They gave it off in this world, they wasted it, and hence this was their paradise because they used it all, right? So one could look at it that way as well. But primarily it's in relation to what is awaiting for them in the next world that one can only deduce you're relaxing and living in paradise right now. Now, one of the great scholars, Fudayl ibn Iyad, he says that whoever forgoes the pleasures and desires of the world is in a prison. As for the one who does not abandon them, then what type of prison is he in? Right? Because as I mentioned right now, that they're just transgressing, living in the world however they want, and doing all these things. So what this tells us, brothers and sisters, is the virtue of patience. Just be patient. There are things you want to do, especially as young Muslims, that others are doing, whether it is partying, whether it's doing all these haram things that they're always engaged in, and then you sit there and you feel bad that, hey, how come I can't do those things? Why is my religion restricting me? Why can't I have the freedoms they have? You have to realize that you're not on earth to do those things. Earth is not such a great place. It's a short abode that It's really limited how much fun you can have, how much money you can have, how many years you're on earth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is simply asking us to be patient, do what He commanded, and then He will give you an eternal paradise, everlastingness that will never, ever end. And as a result, you will enjoy forever and ever. So just be patient. It's not that long. The world will go by quickly. Rather, we should also look as Muslims how many things we are able to do, brothers and sisters. We can eat any kind of foods we want aside from pork and drinking alcohol. We're able to sleep whatever hours we want. There's no limitation. We're able to carry many types of jobs. We're able to live in nice homes, have nice cars as long as we pay our zakat. We're able to get married. We're not a tradition like some in the world that look at a monastic life as the best life, where you are a monk, giving up marriage and families and living on top of a mountain, right? No, this is not our religion. Our religion says you get married and have children. It's the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. You'll get the most reward. Our religion says working is worship. It's a good thing, right? You do it for the sake of Allah. Eating, drinking, having nice cars, homes, all that is allowed as long as you don't use those things to disobey Allah and be deluded from being a Muslim in your primary responsibilities and fulfilling those things that Allah has commanded you. So when you consider all that, brothers and sisters, subhanAllah, it's not very hard. It's really easy, to be honest with you. It just requires a little bit of patience on your part, and those things that you think are so hard and it's haram, there's always an alternative, right? There's always an alternative. So you can't have pork, but you can have lamb. You can't listen to music that is using all these foulness in it. You can listen to an Islamic nasheed. You can't have wine, but you can have apple juice, or you can have grape juice without the alcohol. Little substitutions, they're not so bad, are they? And then just be patient afterwards. And yes, sometimes it is hard, but as they say, no pain, no gain. If you don't struggle, then where are you going to get your reward from? This world for a Muslim is about submission, it's about patience, it's about proving yourself to Allah that you want those great rewards of the hereafter. Jazakumullah khair for listening once again. We're going to do a recap of the hadiths we covered really quickly, and inshallah we'll continue next time. So the first hadith that we covered today is Al-Khamru Jima'ul Ithmi. The second, which is alcohol constitutes many sins. The second hadith we covered is Al-Mu'minu Ghirrun Karimun Wal-Fajiru Khabbun La'imun. A believer is simple and noble, and a transgressor is deceitful and ignoble. And الظلم ظلمات يوم القيامة. Oppression will be darknesses on the day of judgment. And the last hadith we covered for today is الدنيا سجن المؤمن وجنة الكافر. The world is a prison for the believer and a paradise for the unbeliever. We thank Allah for this opportunity. وَلِلَّهِ الْحَمْدُ وَصَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَى سَيِّدِنَا Muhammad. We'll see you next time for another lesson, inshallah, in this podcast series. Barakallahu ta'ala fikum. Until next time, may Allah preserve you, bless you and your families and loved ones. Please pray for all of us. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you for listening. This podcast was brought to you by Seeker's Guidance, the Global Islamic Seminary. Visit seekersguidance.org to access reliable Islamic knowledge taught by qualified teachers. We offer a wide range of courses, podcasts, articles, and a world-class answer service. Support us in spreading free, reliable Islamic knowledge to millions around the world by becoming a monthly supporter. Visit seekersguidance.org/donate and make a small monthly commitment today. Our beloved Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "Whoever guides someone to goodness will have a similar reward." So don't forget to share this podcast and spread prophetic guidance.